Hello, hello! Welcome back to Brenda's Books.
I'm so glad you chose to join me today as we continue the love story of Sara's War. Today we are on Chapter 11. Here we go. Chapter 11, Unexpected. Inside a large plastic bowl, sitting in the sink of a small clinic room, my white plaster of Paris powder is ready and waiting. A long cotton bandage lays adjacent to it. I'm not happy with how thin this cotton is, so I head for the supply room to find some more. I twist my way through 3 short halls, passing all the small clinic rooms until I reach a dead end and enter the vast medical supply closet. I peer around at the tall shelves to see where I could possibly find cotton. There seems to be no rhyme or reason to where things have been put. Aha! There's a cotton roll right next to the scalpels. Interesting. I sigh at the thought of the massive organization project this closet needs. The good news is, the first cotton roll I find is just the thickness I'm looking for. Here you are, Doctor. Colonel Haskins stands just outside the open door. One would think by now I wouldn't jump at his voice, but no such luck. Colonel Haskins! I squawk, saluting him. He salutes me back. Here's your new insignia. I wish for you to put it on at once. Oh, he wishes for me to put it on, does he? In layman terms, he's ordering me. I'm glad this is one idiosyncrasy I actually picked up while I was in country. Yes, sir, I reply, taking a few steps toward his outstretched arm. As he drops the insignia into my hand, I gasp at the sight of it. It has 2 serpents wound around a winged staff, a golden caduceus, the traditional emblem of physicians. Apparently, I'm part of the Army Medical Corps now. Confused, I glance up at him. Sir? The colonel's eyebrows lift high. Forgive me, sir. There is still so much I need to learn about the Army. But isn't this insignia reserved for commissioned officers? It is. You're at the rank of a captain. Pay grade 03. What? I raise my eyebrows in disbelief. But how? I trail off. You've served your time in the medical world, Doctor, the colonel explains. You have all the training and education that is required for this rank in the medical branch. I'm speechless. There's no need to be overwhelmed, the colonel soothes. Your responsibilities will basically be the same, except now you will be in charge of relief. That's all, huh? Just in charge of relief. Sure, piece of cake. Who was in charge of this place previously? I wonder to myself. I'm getting the feeling that no one has been in charge. Now all the disorganization everywhere makes more sense. And hopefully your new pay will make all that education worth it, the colonel says with a small smile. Wow, I am so honored, sir, I say. You should be. You deserve this. I'm sure if the Army had known in the beginning that you had such knowledge and skills, you would have been promoted right away. I swallow hard. Thank you, sir. Do you have your old insignia with you? The colonel asks. Yes, sir, I reply, reaching in my pocket. I haven't pinned it on because... I know, the colonel interrupts me. I frown. Of course he would know. When I glance back at the colonel's face, I see he is frowning too. Which room would you like me to take Parson to? He asks. Clinic room J, please. I'll be there in just a moment. The colonel nods and disappears around the corner. Immediately I pin my shiny new insignia over my heart. When I finally find a good pair of scissors, I snip off a couple yards of cotton and speedily twist my way back through the halls to where my patient and my superior are waiting. The wretched man sits on the small clinic bed that nearly fills the entire space of the miniature room. With his blonde hair waving about his face, he smirks at me and spits out a nasty stream of crudeness. Oh, real smooth, I say. That's quite the vocabulary you have. Without a word, Colonel Haskins rips open his heavy green jacket. I'm so inadvertently distracted by his obvious musculature underneath that it takes me a minute before I realize he has pulled out some duct tape from inside his shirt pocket. Did he bring that with him on purpose? I tighten my lips to keep from smiling as Haskins marches over to Slimeball and slaps a strip over his mouth. Parson yells wordlessly and moves to rip the tape off with his good arm, but Colonel Haskins catches him first. "Hold him for a minute," I say. "I have an idea." Parson continues to protest in vain against the Colonel's death grip, while I yank open a board restraint from beneath the bed. Together we strap Slimeball's uninjured arm to it. Mr. Evil screams wordlessly again, but this time it's with obvious rage. "Your feet are next if you make another sound," says the Colonel. And then, in one jerky movement, Parson attempts to high-kick Colonel Haskins in the face. Even though he misses completely, my eyes widen with the movement. The Colonel, on the other hand, doesn't even flinch. "Let's strap his feet," he says to me. I open all 3 drawers of the desk one by one, searching for anything that will work to tie him down. At last I pull out an ace bandage. By this time, Parson is standing and trying to undo the strap of the board restraint with his broken arm. Looking at this, I can see right away that he also has a broken elbow, as he cannot bend his arm at all. Colonel Haskins pushes him back on the bed with one strong shove. "I'll hold, you tie," he says. Parson screeches muffled complaints and thrashes against the bed in a futile effort to get up. Slimeball's legs are immovable as I tie the ace bandage around his ankles. Then I roll out another board restraint meant for the legs and tighten the strap over Parson's knees. I purse my lips to keep from smiling, but fail completely. Colonel Haskins is smiling too. "If it weren't for protocol," the Colonel says, looking and sounding completely passive, "I'd break your other arm rather than getting you fixed up." Parson screams another muffled protest. Colonel Haskins grins. Then he leans closer to him and lowers his voice. "Really, how dare you call yourself a leader after what you've done to others?" I don't know if Haskins knew I could hear him or not. His dark tone sends chills down my spine. I can't see Parson's face. The Colonel stands straight again and his tone is back to normal. "I'm just going to add one more knot here, Dr. Andrews." "Be my guest." He grabs one more ace bandage from the drawer and ties another knot around Parson's ankles. "I'll be with Petty Officer Harrison if you need anything, Doctor," he says as he glides through the doorway. "Thank you, Colonel," I call after him. "Oh, and just for the record," he says, popping his head back into the room, "I didn't try to break his arm. And his elbow," I add. "His elbow, too?" He sounds truly surprised. "I'm afraid so." That's too bad." The Colonel is clearly sarcastic. Then he glares at Parson in a way I didn't think possible. "My apologies," he says, his tone sardonic. Parson rolls his eyes and the Colonel slips out the door again. Mr. Evil is screeching against his duct tape as I turn the corner down the hall from Clinic Room J. I'm finished putting his arm-length cast on, and I'm still contemplating whether or not to untie him myself or leave him strapped to the clinic bed for someone else to find. The latter idea is winning. "All done, Doctor?" "Oh," I breathe. Colonel Haskins is standing right beside me again. I sigh heavily. "You know, Colonel, for being such a large man, you sure move like a mouse." "Pardon me." He appears solemn, besides the twinkle in his eyes. "All done?" he repeats. "Yes. Were you waiting for me, sir?" Well, yes." "Thought he would get away and trample me?" "No, I didn't think that. Nobody can loosen my square knots," he boasts. "Oh, of course not. I should have known." "I was just thinking, since both of us were unable to work out this morning, maybe we could work out now. Together, I mean." "Exercise together? Is he insane? Don't soldiers and officers usually work out with those who can challenge them? Obviously, I can't compete with this man. Does he need a self-esteem boost today or something? Why is he asking me this?" Maybe. The Colonel seems to be growing anxious at my hesitancy. Or maybe he thinks I'm suddenly developing a speech impediment. I'm wondering myself. "You know that we're required to work out every morning while here at the base, right?" he asks. Yes, of course, we all need to be fit, I respond lamely. For crying out loud, speak, Sara. The colonel furrows his brow. But before we go, I say, you may want to untie Corporal Parson, since you are the only one who can untie that knot of yours. I thought about leaving him there, but that might not be the best idea. I'm relieved to have finally said at least one semi-coherent sentence. The colonel grins. I'll be right back. He turns and strolls back toward my patient's room. A few moments later he returns, a wide smile spread across his face. The MPs are on their way to transport him to the court-martial hearing anyway, so we can get going. He deserves to stay there a little longer anyhow. And what if the military police can't loosen your impossible knot? Are you going to leave the corporal there forever? I ask, as the two of us start weaving our way back to the main hallway. The colonel shrugs. Why not? He says, still grinning, and then he peers down to look at me more directly. And he's no longer a corporal, he says, his voice absolute. He stops as he opens the heavy door, leading to outside. I pause in place, as I wait for my superior to cross the threshold first. This is another army rule I had forgotten when he was with me in my office the other day. I'm glad I remember it now. But Colonel Haskins motions with his hand for me to proceed. Ladies first today, he says, his eyes smiling. The day is bright and sunny, but the air is still wet and fresh from last night's rain. We walk around a building or two to get to the fitness room, or conditioning, as it is called. I mentally chastise myself for not being clear-headed enough to come up with an excuse to say no to this grinning ox walking beside me. What gave him this absurd idea? I wonder, as we step inside our destination. Conditioning is quite large and long, reminding me of a small warehouse. Lying before us are rows and rows of treadmills, elliptical machines, ab coasters, free weights, and every kind of bench press one could imagine. The equipment all seems pretty old. The air is filled with spontaneous squeaks and rattles from the several running machines. What would you like to do first, toning or cardio? Asks the colonel. I laugh out loud at his nicknames, already feeling nervous. He looks at me puzzled for a moment. Weights or treadmill? He laughs lightly. I knew what you meant. How about... Hey, look who I found! I turned to see Lexi standing in a white tank top with a towel swung over her shoulder, her forehead sprinkled with sweat. Lexi! The colonel and I exclaim in unison. I turn to look at him in surprise, but he is holding his arm just over his head as Lexi jumps up and smacks his hand in a deafening high five. Apparently they know each other. How's my pilot doing? He asks cheerfully. They are still clasping hands back and forth like a loose tug-of-war. I'm as good as I can be. Just got back the day before Sara arrived. Private Andrews, she says as she smiles at me. The colonel smiles at me too, and then turns back to Lexi. Dr. Andrews, he corrects her. Really? Lexi is shocked as she takes in my new Insignia for the first time. I thought you were just a medic. Apparently my almost doctorate degree is good enough, I explain with a small smile. Lexi's eyes widen in dismay. No kidding! And then she smirks and points a finger at me. I knew you were a smart one. Are you finished already? The colonel asks Lexi. I haven't lifted yet, Lexi says, taking a deep breath. Can I join you? The colonel casually turns to look at me. I gaze back at him until I realize he is waiting for me to be the one to give permission. Oh, of course! Show us how it's done, Lexi. Lexi and the colonel both smile wide. Well, at least somebody's excited about this.
And that concludes Chapter 11. I hope you're enjoying as the love story moves forward. Please come back next Thursday for Chapter 12, which is called Killer Whales. If you want to find out more about Brenda's books, you can visit brendasbooks.net. Until next time, take care.